Good morning, 8th grade. Your worksheet today and your text today are both about myths. So we're going to start with just a basic overview of what is a myth. Myth includes gods, goddesses, and mythical beings. They explain a naturally occurring event, often why does the sun rise, or why, things about the underworld or after death. And often they teach a lesson or a moral. Also, something that I would just write in is myths are very often heroes' journeys, which we've been studying a lot with Junior. And the one that we're going to be looking at today is also going to be a hero's journey. We're going to also be talking about the cause and effects. Events in a story are an example of cause and effect because they cause things to happen. They might propel actions in characters, make characters do things, cause a conflict or problem, move the plot forward, build to a climax, or create interactions for characters. So certain events are going to cause characters to interact in different ways. We're also going to take a look at objective summary, which is something that we have looked at before, and you'll also need for your benchmarks next week. Objective summaries include the most important characters and events without containing the reader's opinion on the text. So an objective summary does include, like I said, the most important events or actions, including the climax of the story, the main characters' names, and true facts about the story. But what it does not include is minor or untrue details. Oftentimes, you'll see that details in the story that they give in an objective summary actually aren't even true. So you can eliminate those answers right away, or the reader's opinion. So not any opinions on characters. It can include how the character feels or things that we would definitely take away. If somebody dies and that's called tragic, that's okay. But calling a character silly or funny, usually we're not going to include that in an objective summary. So our objective today is that we can analyze the effects of major events in the myth. So events happen, what effect do they have? How do they cause something to be different or to change? To create an objective summary. As we are reading, you are going to underline major events in the myth to track the effects of these events. So what is the event and then what happens because of it? And then finally, we're going to use those annotations to eventually create an objective summary of our story. Here's a little foreword of our story. Our characters' names are Orpheus and Eurydice. We bring you the sad but we hope beautiful story in verse, meaning a poem. Orpheus, the musician, married Eurydice, the shepherdess. When she was killed by a snake, he traveled down to the underworld and was granted one chance to fetch her back to life. I speak of a man of sweet honeyed melody, whose lovesick heart had no remedy, but to travel to where none before, save sad souls who live no more, have been and seen and never come back, the land of death, where all is black. So that's sort of an introduction to our myth, talking about how Orpheus is going to travel to the underworld, the land of death, because of his lovesick heart. But where we start is under the sun of ancient Greece, where legends begun. Orpheus his name, and music he made. And music he made, like no other who sang or played, his notes unfold upon the breeze. He woos the birds, he charms the trees. No living thing is quite immune when Orpheus plays his tender tune. So that's describing Orpheus as a musician. His skill commands the strings of the lyre. Under his orders it sings like a choir of love for a woman, Eurydice. Though his tongue was tied in speech, he, a man who hardly knew her, walked by her side and tried to woo her. So who is our protagonist? And remember what a protagonist is. Our protagonist is Orpheus. And what does our protagonist want? If I go back to our text, under his orders, it sings like a choir of love for a woman, Eurydice. Though his tongue was tied in speech, a man who hardly knew her walked by her side and tried to woo her. So what does he want? He wants Eurydice. He wants to woo. And woo means like make, fall in love, or kind of pursue. So that's kind of that first event. What does he do? He walks by her side, he plays her music, and he tries to woo her. What effect is that going to have? Go ahead and read to find out, underlining your events and seeing what he does, his actions, or the events that happen in the text, what effect they have on the rest of the story.